Phoenix's Rising podcast provides LGBTQ and POC with knowledge about and coaching through transitioning out of relationships with cluster B personalities, be they family, friends, or coworkers. On this podcast, I share my experiences and have interviews with authors, educators, and more whose works have helped me tremendously. The elements of transitioning into a new life is to reveal what's hurting, heal the pain through processing, grow in confidence and faith, and show others so they can live authentically without cluster Bs. Let's get ready to rise! All right, Phoenixes are rising. Hopefully you guys can hear me because I have not checked the audio. And forgive me, I'll let you guys know now. When you see me in this hoodie, I have a few that are colored like this with different bleach spots on it. And this is uh my uh my comfort stuff, right? So, and I have to do some wash because washing things by hand that are hoodies and are thick takes it longer to dry and ends up leaving an odor. So off to the laundromat I go sometime in the future. I just buy another hoodie. Anyway, so as promised, this is what I'm going to start from reading from. Let's see if I'm trying to get this green screen stuff right. Bam. Anyway, it's called The Wise Lesbian Guide to Getting Free from Crazy Making Relationships. And this is by Amber Alt, PhD, MSW. And just to read a bit about her, let's see. The Wise Lesbian Guide to Getting Free from Crazy Making Relationships. Dr. Amber Alt, a clinical sociologist and psychotherapist, draws from clinical literature and expertise in LGBT culture, and a series of interviews with lesbian and queer women who experienced relationships with toxic partners. She helps you determine if the trouble you in your relationship is rooted in a partner's personality disorder. She reviews common toxic relationship dynamics, the costs of staying in crazy making situations, common personality disorder patterns, and why you might be vulnerable to getting involved with a disordered woman. Perhaps most importantly, she describes the skills and strategies you need if you are preparing to exit a toxic relationship and detailed practices for recovery once you are free. Now, I will say this, I am offering, because many of us who go through these relationships and come out on the other side, we gain that wisdom and we gain the knowledge, and then we gain the wisdom that we pass on to other people. So I have created a course. It is an 8-week online course. It is launching January 11th, 2020. What the course consists of is educating you on personality disorders or character disorders, also known as cluster B personalities. Once you know who has been traumatizing you or why they were traumatizing you, then we go in the second part, we go into how do we heal and unpack those trauma bonds, the abuse, the things that you still have not healed, which is a trauma bond. If you haven't healed, if you haven't let go what your grandma did or what your first love did or whatever, that's still a trauma bond that you're holding on to. You're holding on to it. Right? If you haven't let go of the child, any childhood abuse, right? If you haven't, nobody's helped you to unpack or guided you through that, right? Or, for that part, then that's what you need to do, because that is what they're attached to. When you're vulnerable spiritually, that's when they get in. That's when they feel that you're pliable, you are ripe for the plucking. as one cluster B personality so disgustingly put it while watching a young woman who just turned 18 on the softball team. Anyway, happen to know that person personally, unfortunately. So anyway, the course it's 25% off for, the holiday special. So it was about $200. So now it's down to 150. You can make 3 monthly payments. $50 gets you in, right? You'll be automatically charged on your credit card and we get started. So like I said, you will get to know what cluster B personalities are, the tactics and how they function and how to recognize them. The second part is you will be unpacking the 4 steps that I call reveal, heal, grow, and show. That's what I'm going to take you through because that's what I was taken through on my process. I did not have any human to rely on. It was pure spirit because that's all that I had. And I'm grateful that that's all that I had because it strengthened my relationship with the Most High and my gifts. So as I got to know myself, I got to know what my likes and dislikes are, not according to somebody else who wanted to mold me and shape me and keep me in servitude to them, right? But just by me being me, right? And so anyway, I want to share that with you guys. Again, launching January 11th. Also, what comes with this? So this is easily like an $800 course, right? But I want people to join in. It's not about the money. I do desire to be compensated for my time and my effort, my expertise, because I am certified as a transformational life coach and a NARC coach. So of course I want to get the benefits of that, but I also want to be able to reach as many people as I possibly can. Right now, I am opening the course for 10 people to get started. We will have the course also consists of quizzes at the end of each module, a workbook that you download and work from. If you need an extra notebook or whatever, that's fine, but there is a downloadable workbook. You sign off on disclaimers and stuff like that. Also, we will be meeting through Zoom calls. So make sure that your emails are up to date and make sure that you check your emails because I will be sending them sending them through to you guys through your emails. So if your email is not working, then you need to change it and update it with me and or with the system. And that way you're not going to miss these calls because Phoenix Rising Academy is a safe, structured environment for us to heal, to grow, to hold each other accountable, to be able to be understanding for people, to be able to be there for people who may not, be still in a cluster B personality relationship or who are transitioning and still find it lonely, find it hard to talk to people about what's happened because a lot of us have gone through some deep stuff. It's not just the physical or the mental, it's the supernatural too. If you listen to some of my podcasts and me telling you guys about my story and how I got into even studying this, was not studying to be a transformational coach or a NARC coach. I was studying to be a filmmaker, a script writer, right? And so life turned, but it still all fits. So that's what Phoenix's Rising Academy is about. It is about supporting people who are trying to find their way, get up out of the ashes, get up out of the wreckage, and find those gems and rise and go and build and create a new foundation. And so if you are interested, so another bonus again, forgot to say, but another bonus is that if you so desire, you have the opportunity for these 8 weeks to also receive free coaching sessions that are usually $90 for 60 minutes, free coaching sessions with me. All right. So that's why I'm only taking 10 this time around. 10 people, 10 dedicated Phoenixes Rising who are ready to get into their authentic self and get free of cluster B personalities, or at least get the tools to recognize them and to move away from them. Right. So because, if resist the devil and they will flee. But if you're letting them in, if they feel any type of doubt, they're still going to pry at you. right? Because now it's just not that I don't meet them myself, but they know better. Okay. So if you have any questions, go to my link tree, go to, you can DM me, emails all in my profile. All of that is all in my profile. So go there. And again, it's launching January the 11th. It's you could do a one-time payment of 150, or you can do three monthly payments of $50 to for the whole course. Again, we meet weekly. There's going to be an orientation on the 11th. I will be open for it. If nobody signs up, then I'll just relaunch it in something. But I know that I have at least 10 dedicated Phoenixes Rising, new Phoenixes Rising Academy members who are ready and willing to get the ball rolling on their healing journey to go deeper, right? Get into their purpose. So there's quizzes at the end of each module, downloadable workbook, 60-minute free coaching sessions with me on the side if you need it, right? Within those 8 weeks. So I think that, charging 150 is low, but I will, like I said, I want to reach as many people as I possibly can. So let us get to it. Again, this is the Wise Lesbian Guide to getting free from crazy making relationships and getting on with your life. This is by Amber Alt, PhD. And again, the reason why, so I specialize, my focus is for Black women, and especially Black lesbian women, because, as a Black lesbian woman, I have yet to have a healthy relationship. Because of either right now, it's just the environment that I'm in, right? So when get out of this environment, then to start fresh, whatever. But I have always been that empath that people have taken advantage of. Not all the time have I allowed myself to be taken advantage of, but I needed to go deeper, which is why I had to go deeper on my healing journey and became homeless. And that changed me, forever. But I had to go deeper to find out, like, okay, why am I attracting these people, or why are these people attracted to me? I'm not attracted to them, because what I find in what I believe that a lot of empaths find is that they make us sick to our stomach. When I am around negative people, demonic people, I literally get sick to my stomach. I can't stand it. My throat chakra closes up. I can't stand it. I had one person who's a cluster B personality with multiple personalities, and God knows the whole cocktail. As I said, you got one diagnosis of a cluster B personality. That's just the one that's glaring. The rest are still lurking right around there. Who had been targeting us. And I noticed that she was watching us before I actually started talking to her. And then I realized that was an induced. She had set that up for me to talk to her, to give her an excuse to, be in my environment. Because other than that, I was ignoring her. And the reason why I was ignoring her was because I took a look at her. I saw a black aura around her, especially her abdomen and womb area. And I was like, no, ma'am. And the sight of that aura caused me to literally have like an acid reflux and throw up in my mouth. I said, nope, no, ma'am, grateful to my guides and whatnot. But she had already been targeting us. So anyway, let's get to it. And I said that I was going to start reading this for the new year and on this podcast. If you'd like to support the podcast, please do a Cash App. You can send any type of blessings and donations to BPR Media, $ BPR Media. And I appreciate it. Anything is good. A dollar goes a long way. If 1,000 people, are so gracious to bless me with a dollar donation, I'll have it made. You know what I mean? Because it takes a lot to do to, create this content and take the time out and, between working full time and taking care of the girls. And I have a puppy who's, having some pains and would like to get some vet money. extra, on top of everything. So, life is challenging right now. Let's need to say the least, but we are Phoenix is rising, right? All right, so I will start. Again, Getting Free from Crazy Making Relationships by Amber Alt, PhD. And I'm going to read the introduction. I've written this little book with the hope of providing help, support, encouragement, and relief to women suffering in relationships with women partners whose behavior is confusing, difficult, erratic, and exhausting. A number of wonderful writers have offered excellent recent books about the difficulties that partners experience in relationships with narcissists, psychopaths, and people with borderline personality disorder. Although many authors acknowledge that both straight people and LGBT people experience roller coaster relationships, few devote explicit attention to exploring toxic same-sex relationships. And I've never, like, when I came across this book, I'm not going to interrupt too much because I do what you guys hear, you guys can comment in the, make comments on it. But I came across this book after I was discarded from the first real mega cluster B personality. I mean, like, I had never experienced anything like it before. This absolute unfiltered, insidious, but consistent and intense, murderous hate for other people by this person with multiple personalities on top of everything else that she'd been diagnosed with. Like, and I came across this, like, it was like God was saying, boom, here we go, read this. So anyway, and because a lot of people don't talk about it, if I would have thought that I was crazy, I probably would have been passive about it and just kind of processed it in my own way. But when I came across this book, right, when I came across this book, oh, come on, for the love of all that's holy. I'll get better at this, guys. Okay. So when I came across this book, it was a lifesaver because I was like, yes, I went through that. 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 Like, this woman was a textbook. Like, it was like, okay, we got you. We're protecting you. My guides and my ancestors and the Most High is like, we got you. But I want you to see something. Right. So that was my training. That was the beginning of my training. So anyway, and a lot of people books don't talk about it. She is correct. The groundbreaking books that do focus on the topic of lesbian battering are very valuable to women who are experiencing partner violence, but many women in toxic relationships don't consider their relationships violent, so haven't been drawn to the text on lesbian battering. Not seeing themselves reflected clearly in either the lesbian battering literature or the general literature on toxic relationships, lesbian partners in crazy making relationships often spend a great deal of time and money trying to figure out what could explain their girlfriend's erratic, exploitive behavior. And how to return stability to relationships in which they are walking on eggshells, in which they how to return stability to relationships in which they are walking on eggshells. Okay, yeah, makes sense. Then what I find too, because when I came out at like 13, you know what I mean? It was pretty obvious. So I wanted to be official, it was just normal to me, but I wanted to be official. So, there's so much. Now, this is written by European women, right? There are so many books out there about how to have sex. Like, it's almost catering to the masculine, colonial, patriarchal, capitalist gaze. You have all these books about sex, like we don't already inherently know. Of course, we may want to get better, but, if you have feelings for the people, it just naturally comes. But there are so many books on sex and toys, but we don't have any on how to spot someone, a same sex, in a same sex relationship who is being abused, psychologically, verbally, mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, right? All these sex books, but none like this. This book offers lesbians a way of understanding the dynamics of toxic relationships, pardon me, toxic relationships that is rooted in the psychology of personality disorders and informed by cultural insights on lesbian culture and the situation of lesbians and other queer women in societies that still exclude LGBT people from full social participation. How does living in a heterosexist and homophobic society affect your vulnerability to getting involved with a woman who is a narcissist, a psychopath, or a person with borderline personality disorder? How does lesbian culture make it challenging for women like you to get help or to exit a toxic relationship once you recognize that your partner is not who they thought she was when you fell in love with her? This book takes a lesbian specific look at our vulnerabilities to such relationships, their dynamics, and the barriers LGBTQ people face in getting help. Right. And that's true. Like here where I live, when I was homeless, a lot of trans women of color, you know, Hispanic, Latin, Black, were at the mercy of gang members. Because everybody here where I'm located, everybody here knows that if you can't pay your rent, if you come on hard times, or if you get popped for something, whatever, right? And you need help, you go to the Hispanic gang, you go to the Mexican gangs. And they'll put you on, they'll put you through training. You can, if the Mexicans the gang members want to take over an area, then they'll send this person who, they'll train them in gaslighting. They'll train them how to be a cluster B if they don't already have that proclivity to be, that have that type of character disorder. So, you know what I mean? So when I was on the streets, I saw them. If they weren't selling themselves, they were doing illegal stuff like this to get, money or food or have a place to stay for the, you know what I mean? Because like they have squat houses. They have squat. I mean, there's one just right across the right around, like, and there's a lot of them. And I'm like, okay, how come nobody else notices this here in California, in Northern California? Because there's so many. It's like right out there. They basically the Hispanic gangs are just so and the Asian gangs too are just so comfortable with their power and influence that they just not hiding it. Everybody knows what it is. But it was so sad to me to see trans women who were, selling themselves, prostituting, or going out and doing this activity just to survive. I mean, the only thing that a lot of the LGBTQ centers here where I stay are just needle exchanges and give you, I forget what they call it, but anything, for a trans man to strap strap your chest down. And I forget the term for that, but, and I'm just like, okay, but you don't have housing for homeless LGBT, and whatever housing you do have, it's a cherry picking contest because it's being ran by white supremacist lesbians and gays with money. You know what I'm saying? So they don't want, you know what I mean? Like, just really crazy. So anyway, all right. Sorry, guys. So how does living in a heterosexist and homophobic society affect your vulnerability to getting involved with a woman who is a narcissist, a psychopath, or a person with borderline personality disorder? How does lesbian culture make it challenging for women like you to get help or to exit a toxic relationship once you recognize that your partner is not who you thought she was when you fell in love with her? This book takes a lesbian specific look at our vulnerabilities to such relationships, their dynamics, and the barriers LGBTQ people face in getting help, as well as a host of strategies for protecting yourself and recovering from the trauma that partners often experience from such relationships. I hope you will find my descriptions of 3 personality disorder patterns that cause a great deal of relationship suffering, useful for making sense of the toxic relationship in which you find yourself. Still, this is only one way of thinking about your partner's crazy making behavior. The important thing for our purposes in this book is not whether your partner has a personality disorder or carries a personality disorder diagnosis in the mental health system, but whether the experience you are having in your relationship supports your well-being, happiness, and capacity to be your best self. Let me read that again. The important thing for our purpose in this book is not whether your partner has a personality disorder or carries a personality disorder diagnosis in the mental health system, but whether the experience you are having in your relationship supports your well-being, happiness, and capacity to be your authentic self. I'm adding the authentic, but to be yourself. You deserve not to suffer in a love relationship, because there's no, there's ups and downs in love, but there's not a concerted, concentrated, intense effort to literally murk you. You deserve not to suffer in a love relationship, and you have the ability to have a life in which you are not constantly on edge because of your partner's problems, unpredictability, volatility, or manipulations. Again, you're not constantly on edge because of your partner's problems. A lot of them like to dump. These cluster B personalities are emotional dumpers. They're physical dumpers. Some of them like to transfer. Let's say you have a cluster B partner who's in a car wreck. So they want you to feel, because they're mad, and they don't want to feel that pain because they're too good to feel the pain. So they're going to dump it on you. And suddenly your wrist starts hurting, your ribs start hurting. You ain't done nothing but, brisk walk 6 hours like you normally do. And you know what I'm saying? So yeah. So this book is designed to help you interpret the toxic dynamic you are experiencing in your relationship and to help you cultivate skills that will allow you to move on to a happier, healthier, more peaceful phase in your relationship life. You deserve to feel loved, valued, and significant in your relationship. If your dream is to be in a relationship, you deserve for that relationship to be full of delight, support, comfort, compassion, and respect. As same-sex marriage becomes legal in more and more places in the world, it is perhaps more important than ever that we choose our partners consciously and carefully and build our skills in identifying and understanding toxic relationships and how to respond to them. Our lives are short. Our world needs us to be present, engaged, and involved. We can learn much from toxic relationships. It's true, and but you can build your foundation off of that, not the toxic part, but off of the wisdom that you've gathered from it, right? It's true. Perhaps their most important lesson is that relationships worth having support us in being our best selves and doing our best work for the well-being of the world. We prepare for such relationships with everything that comes before them, including our negative and painful experiences. If you are in or recovering from a toxic relationship now, you can use its lessons as fertile compost for growing a happy life moving forward. I hope this book will be an important tool on your path toward a richly satisfying, deeply rewarding life free of toxic relationships. Thank you for picking up this book. Now let's take the first step together. One thing that you will find with professionals in this area is that we have all found that it is possible, and I'm going to do the second chapter, but we have all found that it is possible to have satisfying, sustaining relationships or careers. We can change our lives, because the whole point, and this is what makes cluster B's mad. It's a narcissistic wound. Number one, when you discard them, or when they discard you and you don't come back, you're like deuces, right? So that makes them mad, because they were only because basically you're calling them out on their bluff. That's the way that they're taking it. See, now remember, these people are immature as well, mentally, not up to speed, so they're taking it as, oh gosh, you just rejected me again, and I was trying to let you know that, hey, I'm here for you, and I'm the best thing since apple pie and hot dogs, and you've just rejected me. Like, why would you reject me when I have this grandiose sense of self, right? So that's one thing. When with every professional narc coach or psychologist or whatever, specializing in healing from trauma, and especially from relationships with borderline personalities and psychopaths and sociopaths, narcissists, that whole cluster B cocktail, know that there's limits to what these creatures can do. So again, that's what my, the launching of the January to 2022 course, the 4 steps to your authentic self and breaking free of cluster B personalities, is all about, is giving you that foundation, right? Helping you, we collectively come together, 10 of us. If that's what, I'm opening it for 10 spots right now, to come together and to confirm, to understand, to give you the knowledge and on how these guys move, so that when you can articulate it, they can't gaslight you, right? Like they can't say, oh, I didn't do anything, and you recognize it. Just because, and see, it gets you to say, okay, I don't care about what other people say. Just because you're walking in between society and insanity, right? They walk in this plane like, I'm just being normal. So you have this mask like a robot. And that's why people, because they don't react like us. They don't have empathy. So they don't react like us. So it literally is, when you actually start to see through that facade, that robotic mechanical response to things, because they're mimickers. They collect data so they can say, okay, this is how I'm supposed to respond to this type of situation. And they will give Academy Awards, performance, but it does not mean that it's genuine like it is with us. It's not genuine with them. So anyway, so that's the first part of that. And I'm just looking, and you guys, please do not feel afraid to comment, and please like, subscribe, and share. Please, I'm just looking to get, if that reach 1,000. My TikTok followers have been so absolutely supportive, and I'm so grateful. And I go live, and then I post the TikToks lives on the YouTube channel. And right now, just specifically for the YouTube, I'm going to do the full readings of these books. There's another book coming up that I am really excited about too, but I wanted to do this one. So let's get to the second part. So desperation. Vibrant, healthy, connected relationships support our ability to thrive. Difficult, toxic, and exploitive relationships undermine our health, our happiness, and our ability to bring our best selves to the project of creating a better world. Because same-sex relationships exist in a broader social context that is generally toxic for women and especially invalidating for lesbians, our relationships with each other need to serve as places of rejuvenation and safety, support and inspiration, delight and joy. Despite a feminist vision of same-sex relationships as offering women intimacy in the context of equality, too many women in same-sex relationships find themselves manipulated, exploited, abused, undermined, and exhausted by the intimate partners they trust to serve as a source of sweetness, security, and comfort. Now, I'll pause right there because that says something. I don't know how many people that I had talked to that were like, I thought, and it's like it wasn't that they weren't identified as lesbians. It was that they were dumbfounded by the amount of the intensity of the anger, the intensity of the hostility that they were feeling or experiencing from their partner, that would be in like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of stuff, right? So they were like, I didn't expect this to be coming from a woman. So I remember when I was, being abused by women, like kind of takes you back. It's like, well, I mean, so on one hand, I'm Generation X. So on one hand, you have people telling you, oh, you're going to go to hell, you're damned because, man shall not lie with another man, even though we realize and I mean, I realized that years ago, but you can't tell anybody anything who's profited from traumatizing and bullying people, the narcissistic, religion, spiritualists. So if you've profited from the suicide of people who you have claimed are damned to hell, but God never said anything about, basically he said that pedophiles were damned to hell, though you should not lie with young children is the proper translation. But so we're facing that. So who could we have gone to when your girlfriend is beating up on you, and you try and leave and pack up with the poodle and everything, and she's racing, in the car up and down the streets, threatening you and all this kind of stuff. There was nobody to talk to. Everybody was really kind of afraid, again, I'm Generation X. Everybody was really kind of afraid to say anything. And it was kind of like a silent given that the only reason why we, the only you couldn't have a healthy relationship as a Generation Xer. You couldn't have the only thing that you could expect to have, especially if you were young, and an old soul, you couldn't have a healthy relationship because you were far above your time. You weren't like everybody else. To add insult to injury, you know what I'm saying? You're a square. So you knew that you could get drugs. You knew that you could that you could have relationships. You knew if you could mimic and just get along to be along, then you had something. But if you had a greater desire, like to really actually mate without all the drama, then it wasn't going to happen. So I that's what she just said. It's like, too many women in same-sex relationships find themselves manipulated, exploited, abused, undermined, and exhausted by the intimate partners they trust to serve as sources of sweetness, security, and comfort. There was none of that, because especially in Generation X days, you had women who were wearing power suits and, reading Princessa. This is a man's world, you know what I mean? So you had to learn how to think like them, to learn how to be like them. So you had a lot of people, and see these terms with studs and all this other kind of stuff. And plus there was still racism going on. And white heterosexuals and LGBTQ were engaging in racism. I mean, they were anything to feel special. But these are the people that had money to influence laws. And instead of put it into creating a safe place in our community where we weren't allowing predators, sexual, female predators, females can be sex offenders too, sexual deviants too, not because of their sexual orientation, but because they're sex offenders. They believe that they have a right to somebody's flesh, whether they say no or not. So it would have been nice, but that's not what happened, at least what I experienced growing up. I mean, I grew up in Spokane, Washington. So, I mean, a lot of these people, I mean, again, it's the same thing with the community. It's like during that time, it's like, gosh, you knew where the needle exchange was. You knew where you could get some free condoms and some HIV, testing and all that stuff. You knew where all that stuff was, but nobody was teaching anybody about relationships. Nobody was teaching it, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people of LGBTQ are coming from broken homes, coming from homes where they were isolated because they came out or because it was suspected, or because they told on a family member exactly what was really going on in the home, that they had been violated for years. There was never a safe place that I heard about for anybody who was growing up in my generation. So many were kicked out for being gay. And I know, like, when I became homeless, that was the thing, no, I don't want to bond with you. I want to use you. I want to part you out like a car. In exchange, I'll let you stay here. You can wash my dishes. You can walk my dogs, I'll even have sex with you. You know what I mean? Like, you're just treated like a piece of meat, like you're just an object. You're objectified. And I remembered thinking to myself, it's like, I don't really, I don't, I'm always going to be my sexual orientation, but I'm not finding anybody that's spiritually like me. I'm not finding anybody that has the desires that I have. And now at the age that I'm at, I don't find a woman who wants to actually be in a healthy relationship. And it's really flipping sad, because when I was first starting out and coming out when I was 13, and it was kind of like the thing I didn't think about. It's like, God, am I going to have to be older than Methuselah for everybody else to grow up? Now I'm celibate. I'm good. I'm good. It's been decades, dude, since I've been in a relationship. Because I'm not going to take less than what I deserve. And when you get on your healing journey and you realize your worth and you realize your supernatural powers, you realize what your purpose is, you won't take anything. Then it's really like, I'm not going to take any crap. I'm not going to concede. I'm not going to assimilate, So this book is written for lesbians and other queer women who find themselves in the throes of truly toxic relationships. I've designed it to help you understand toxic lesbian relationship dynamics from multiple perspectives, to support you in overcoming any denial you carry about how deeply devastating a toxic relationship might be for you, to offer you an introduction to the social and personal factors that may have made you vulnerable to a relationship that harms your well-being, and to encourage you to remove yourself from a situation that only waters the seeds of fear, frustration, hopelessness, and exhaustion in you. Again, read from the beginning. I've designed it to help you understand toxic lesbian relationship dynamics from multiple perspectives, to support you in overcoming any denial you carry about how deeply devastating a toxic relationship might be for you, to offer you an introduction to social and personal factors that may have made you vulnerable to a relationship that harms your well-being, and to encourage you to remove yourself from a situation that only waters the seeds of fear, frustration, hopelessness, and exhaustion in you. Because that is certainly what it does. I mean, Jiminy Christmas. I can stand on the other side now. And as you guys have listened to my lives and other podcasts, I'm still a targeted individual. And gang stalking, gang stalking, as I have identified it, gang stalking is a hub for cluster B personalities. It's kind of like it's a sorority. Because if you have been a targeted individual, that, and you've been in cluster B personality relationships, or you've listened to my podcasts and you've gotten my definitions. It's the same thing. They're following the same template as if you were in a relationship with or married to, somebody with a cluster B personality diagnosis. It's just multiple people willingly doing it. So there's been no shortage of flying monkeys on top of the principalities, which are the head cluster Bs themselves. And there is a hierarchy, that's something that they don't tell you. There's a hierarchy. So yeah, and so I'm just living proof that you can get through it. It's not the, anyway. Go to my podcasts, other podcasts on here. Okay, so in preparation for this book for lesbians about relationships with girlfriends who have the traits associated with narcissistic, sociopathic, and borderline personality disorders, I asked lesbians who had experienced toxic roller coaster relationships to tell me their stories, right? Relationships are different from ordinary relationships because the pattern of interaction between the people involved is the fundamental source of misery and confusion in the relationship. In ordinary relationships, partners may disagree about how to spend money or where to vacation, but disagreements are resolved, hurt feelings are repaired, and the backdrop for daily interactions is respect, kindness, and mutual support. So they're not hanging you out to dry. You know what I mean? It's not like the end of the world for, if it's a normal relationship. In toxic relationships, problems don't have such clear definitions, and they rarely result in clear, amicable resolutions because at least one partner lacks many of the fundamentals necessary to functional relationships. The capacity to form attachments to a primary partner, a commitment to integrity, trustworthiness, honesty, and respect, the ability to keep agreements and tell the truth, the capacity to self-soothe and stay centered. None of it. The capacity to feel empathy, definitely not. The ability to modulate our speech, the ability to relate to others genuinely and without exploitation. Big one. The capacity to evaluate our own behavior and modify it. The ability to make amends because we are remorseful, different from regret. Yeah. Then openness to influence from our partnerships, the ability to prioritize our partner's interests over our own when circumstances require, and the ability to tolerate and respond to life's ups and downs without becoming a human roller coaster. Ordinary relationships become a human or have conflicts, difficulties, and challenges. Ordinary relationships have conflicts, difficulties, and challenges. In toxic relationships, however, in toxic, tumultuous, dramatic, and crazy relationships, relationship dynamics themselves are the problem. I love how she just, goes straight into it. Like, dude, let's not mince words. It's black, it's white. It's no. So all of the women who talked with me about toxic lesbian relationships have been in other partnerships. All of them had been in relationships with significant longevity, and all of them expressed rational, reasonable expectations about the roles of conflict, reciprocity, and compromise in ordinary relationships. They come from a range of ethnic backgrounds with a variety of educational credentials and professional histories. So these are the women that she's picked from all walks of life to share their stories about being in relationships with psychopaths, narcissists, sociopaths, borderline personalities. I think she's only going on 3 though. Reasonable expectations about the role of conflict, reciprocity, and compromise in ordinary relationships. They come from a range of ethnic backgrounds with a variety of educational credentials and professional histories, and from across the lesbian gender spectrum. Some identify as butch, some as androgynous, some as femme, and some as queer, gender queer. Almost all of them all have had relatively stable employment. Most own their own homes. Some have been parents, and all express dismay, confusion, exasperation, and despair at how their usual strategies and skills for resolving conflict, creating intimacy, and engaging in mutual influence and reciprocal support did not work in relationships that entered into with toxic partnerships. Let me say that again. Most own, okay, let me go back to they come from the people, stories that she's sharing in this book. They come from a range of ethnic backgrounds and a variety of educational credentials and professional stories, and from across the lesbian gender spectrum. Some identify as butch, some as androgynous, some as femme, and some as gender queer. Most own their own homes. Some have been parents, and all express dismay, confusion, exasperation, and despair at how their usual strategies and skills for resolving conflict, creating intimacy, and engaging in mutual influence and reciprocal support did not work in the relationships that they entered into with toxic partners. And that is what exhausts us, because we think, oh gosh, I don't have the tools, or maybe I didn't do something right. And it's not that. You can do everything right. You can use your tools, you can gain your skills. See, because what we end up doing is we try and fix them or fix the situation. And in reality, it wasn't us to begin with. They love to see us squirm. They love to see us do the research. They love to see us going crazy and the cogs worming. They love to see that, okay, what they know that what they're doing isn't working, and that gives me power over them. Because as long as you're trying and you're unstable and they're making you crazy, they get the energy off of it, right? So whether or not they have been diagnosed officially, most of those, especially toxic partners, have the signs and symptoms of one or more of the dysfunctional emotional patterns called personality disorders. The key common element among personality disorders is difficulty in cultivating and maintaining healthy, mutually satisfying, stable, non-exploitive relationships. And I like how she keeps, this is like the third time I've read this in this book. And and many others, is when we realize that, oh my God, I'm in this relationship with this person who literally sees me as an object. And then people wonder why the grooming of a cluster that the cluster B personality puts you through is so similar to that of a pedophile or a sex trafficker or a pimp. So I'm liking that she keeps reusing. Repetition is key. Reusing the exploitive, that these guys exploit you. They exploit your vulnerabilities. We all have vulnerabilities, but they get in and they'll twist it, and all of a sudden you'll start thinking that you're them, and because they definitely want to be you. Ultimately, lesbians who become involved with personality disordered women stand little chance of developing healthy partnerships with them. It's not going to happen. No matter how strong their own relationship skills may be, as the examples I will share in this book. Let me read that again. Ultimately, lesbians who become involved with personality disordered women stand little chance of developing healthy partnerships with them, no matter how strong their own relationship skills may be. As you know, she says, as the examples I will share in this book illustrate. That was something that I had to realize, and I was 15 at the time, and I was dating. So basically, before I was 20, I was already tired, already flipping tired of it. Like, dude, I'm over this, you know, because I'm putting in my all. I'm learn. I was always a learner, always a grower, you know, spiritually, whatever. And I realized with somebody that was in love with, and she was a cluster B personality. And because of how I grew up in I hate that, grew up in a household where my stepmother was being beat. And I thought, then I'm going to try and protect women, right? It's my job to protect all women all over the planet, especially so if they're going to know that I love them and I'm going to heal them. One thing that I realized with this person, because she kept doing the same thing over and over again, she was cheating on me. You know, she wasn't really breadcrumbing. She was not really admitting her sexual orientation. Like she had been with a woman and, you know, had that facade up, but with me, she knew she could let her guard down. When they broke up, and I think that was probably strategic, but when they broke up and she came, you know, not crawling to me, but she came to me, it was like, I wanted what they had. She had been with this woman for 8 years. So I started to think to myself, okay, as a Black person, do you not think that I will ever have money? You know, and you have to think about that in the lesbian community. Like growing up, again, I'm a Generation Xer. And, you know, I noticed that white women did not want to have any relationships with me because they didn't see that I had a future. And they wanted a certain type of lifestyle. Most of the time it was unspoken. But it wasn't that I was going to school. I was getting my associate's degree. I had a car. I mean, I had an apartment. I was doing work study. I mean, like at that age, what was I supposed to have? So that taught me that, you know, okay, I wasn't as in a lesbian relationship, that white women did not see me as marketable, you know? I guess, or you know what I mean? Like, okay, jungle fever shit could go on. Now, it's not that I didn't have white women but by that time I was so bitter that I was just like, I don't care. You know, I got into studying. That's what I got into, reading history and things that interest me, sciences, metaphysics, you know, Asian spirituality and religion. That's how I focus my time, because it's like, okay, I'm realizing that, you know, but with this woman, I realized it's like, I loved her and she was a woman of color, but I loved this woman tremendously, loved her. She could not give me that back. And I guess I was just so used, I didn't even think about it, because when you're labeled a stud, you're just supposed to give your all. And really in heterosexual relationships, because we have this heterosexist dynamics in the lesbian community, because if you're a stud, if you're a stem or whatever, I get tired of labeling myself. You take me as I am. You get to know me. You don't label me so you can, you know, put me up on a shelf here and then take me down when you want me. So, you know, and really in heterosexual relationships, the man goes to work and comes home and the woman, you know, does everything for him. But in the lesbian relationship, when you're supposedly the man, you're the stud, and we all know that that's not true now, but as a Generation Xer, it was other lesbians who were determining, you know, okay, if you're a stud, you do this, you do that, you do this. I couldn't follow that, because I am biologically female. I've always not diagnosed, but I've always said that I am a two-spirit. Like there's literally, I am male and female. They work in tandem. You know, Krishna and Parvati, they work in tandem, in harmony together, but they are definitely distinct within me. People never understood that until they experienced me. And because people have become very lazy in using your profile and your Twitters and your all that kind of stuff to try and, get the upper hand on you. So we're all being kind of conditioned to be cluster B personalities to some extent, because that's what they do. And the people who've designed this stuff are what? Sociopaths and pedophiles. So, I mean, say what you want to say, but yeah, I mean, so it's usually the stud or stem who's doing all the work. And I realized then it's like, not only can I not love you to health, because that was so exhausting. Like, I can't love you healed. I can't heal you with love. I can't do it for anybody. If you are shut off and all you are doing is absorbing so you can exist throughout the day, I've just given you free energy, and I stopped doing that until I could figure it out. Like, okay. And I just realized I can't love her to health. And she came chasing and hoovering. And, when I left, and even had her daughter call me because her daughter was starting to call me mom and stuff like this. And that was heartbreaking. You know what I mean? So for me, it was so crushing that I was just like, I'm done. So really, I was celibate at 25. I was over it. So over it. Anyway, sorry. I'm not going to do so many, but try and, yeah. Okay. So Annie, for example, let's see. Annie, for example, repeatedly exhausted herself. Hazel, you okay? Because if you guys hear my one of my babes start yelling, she has something's torn, and she was really yelping earlier today, and I got to get to bed. But anyway, sorry, she was really yelping earlier today. So if she happens to move around and you hear this loud bark or whine, yelping, nobody's hurting her. She's already injured herself last night because she was so quick to try and come and get a treat that she sprung something. So just to let you guys know. Okay, so anyway, Annie, for example, repeatedly exhausted herself in efforts to make sense of her girlfriend's behavior. She took extreme measures, such as allowing her girlfriend Janelle to move in with her, even though the relationship was clearly unstable. Going against your intuition. All right, sorry, I'm waiting for her. My poor babe, she's been through it. She hoped that living together would soothe Janelle and decrease her jealousy, tantrums, and erratic behavior. That's a red flag, dude. The fact that Janelle is French offered her hope that the behavior she found so confusing could be interpreted through the lens of cultural difference rather than a personal pathology. When I interviewed her for this book, she said, it's my baby girl. I love my babies. Sorry, guys. Okay, so when I interviewed her for this book, she said, I had never been involved with somebody from another country. You don't know if that's what it is. I had never met anybody like this before. I always kept thinking that it was going to change. I kept thinking that it would get better. I kept thinking it had to, as we got to know each other, as she got more comfortable, she got, she was still kind of new to this lifestyle, really. I thought that if she moved in, she would feel more secure, and then maybe she wouldn't be so jealous or reactive to all that weird stuff that used to just kind of set her off. Right, so I'm bracing myself. Okay. So that was, her talking. So unfortunately for Annie, allowing her girlfriend to move into her home proved disastrous. All right. Instead of stabilizing the relationship, it simply increased Annie's exposure to traumatizing emotional toxicity in the forms of brutalizing, mindless speech, and disrespectful behavior. When she starts her thing. There is no governor on her. Pardon me. There's no thing in her that tells her she's got to be careful or of what she says. She just says whatever is coming to her head, and there is no governor. She just says all of this horrible stuff to me. It's like having razor blades ripping me up, cutting me up, souffleing me, and I am supposed to stand here with this shield on me and not feel anything. If I say anything to her, even if I just say, "You're hurting me," that slices and dices her as much as anything she is saying to me. Narcissistic wound. So she has no capacity to hear anything negative, but she has no governor about anything she says. And now, what is that? It's because they have coercive control. They do not like to be contradicted. They do not like to be uh, 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 shown up or chastised or corrected in any way, shape, or form. They don't like boundaries. That's a boundary. How dare you? And that's a wound, because you're dealing with somebody who's like 2 to 5 years old inside. So they're constantly in their ego, right? So I started not trusting her. She was like going through my stuff. I put a lock on my file cabinet because she had been going through my stuff looking for evidence that I'm what? Bad or something. I had a backpack that I carry back and forth to work, which is what I do too. I started putting anything important in there and keeping it by my bedside. I started getting afraid. And this is what they do. It's like people with these personality disorders, and I've shared on this on my podcast or on my TikTok. People with these personality disorders, they want servants. They want to hold you hostage. You're a caged bird. Sing when I want you to sing. Shut up when I want you to shut up. Listen without contradicting me. Pretend that you're interested in me. I had started barring the bedroom door because I didn't know if she would come in. I couldn't sleep all the way because I knew I was afraid she would come in. And I wasn't afraid she was going to do anything to me physically. She's never, ever done that. There was just something about her presence that I didn't want her coming in and trying to start something. I think that's why I would lock the door or bar the door. I didn't want to be afraid, but she was going to come in and try to start a verbal altercation. When I asked her to move out, it had been 9 months and it was just torture for months. She was either in the other room, or constantly fighting. I'm having friends telling me I could stay at their house because it was so horrible. I didn't even feel comfortable in my own home. Wow. Desperately trying to make her relationship work, Annie had allowed her girlfriend to move in. 9 months later, desperately trying to save her own emotional well-being, she asked her girlfriend to move out for months after they stopped living together. However, Annie continued to see Janelle and to search for some kind of way to understand Janelle's volatility, her ability to go from 0 to 60 to ballistic. And remember, they used to have t-shirts, and somebody got me one, said that you could go to some calm to something in 2 point something seconds. And I know that I don't have a cluster B personality, but I know that some of us have absorbed so much emotional trauma, whether it's ours or others, that we get to the point where we're fed up, which is why a lot of us isolate ourselves and go into hermit mode so we can heal and decompress and understand, whatever. So yeah. Anyway, but that used to be a t-shirt. And then so she said Janelle's volatility. She tried to understand Janelle's volatility, her ability to go from 60 to 0 to ballistic, and then to behave as though nothing happened. Her inability to take responsibility for her own behavior. Her inability to take responsibility for her own behavior. Annie is not alone. the other women have been equally desperate for answers and for relief. Bonnie, for example, told me that her need for peaceful respite from her toxic live-in girlfriend became so great that Bonnie would say she had to leave home for a professional conference, drive to a city 3 hours away, and then check into a hotel to sleep for a few days. I understand. Oh my gosh, yes. She learned that her girlfriend, suspicious, jealous, and controlling, would call the hotel instead of simply calling her cell phone to obtain confirmation that she was where she said she was, where she reported. That's just bizarre. Where she reported. Um, get this. Sorry about that. Amanda would work overtime in order to avoid going home to predictably crazy and stressful fights that she says she couldn't wrap her head around because they weren't ever really about any definable issue, and to avoid the profound sadness of feeling estranged and alienated in her own home. Indeed, none of these women is alone in their suffering and despair related to a toxic partnership. Although feeling alone is a common denominator among lesbians who have experienced toxic or roller coaster relationships. As I write, I imagine where you are as you read, how your story echoes the tiny bits of stories I have just shared here. Comment in below. Maybe you have retreated to the guest room in your own home to find some sense of safety from the unpredictable energy of your volatile partner. Maybe you have fabricated a weekend business conference as an excuse to go to a hotel in another city to recharge from your girlfriend's incessant drama. Maybe you are parked in a car bracing to go home in a self-centered person who will predictably be welcoming, unkind, and unappreciative. Wow. Maybe you have the good fortune not to live with your personality disordered girlfriend. So you have some privacy as you read, looking for something, or maybe you didn't date these people at all and they're just your stalkers. Okay. Maybe you have the good fortune not to live with your personality disordered girlfriend, as you have some privacy as you read, looking for something to explain how your life has become so crazy. Even alone, however, you are still on edge about whether she will or won't call, will or won't follow through, will be calm and kind or chaotic and cruel when next you encounter her. Despite your suffering, you regularly debate whether you should stay in this relationship, given how good things can be when things are good, despite how bad things become when they are bad. As I write, I can imagine your exhaustion along with your worry, shame, and confusion. I mean, like, really, just it's exhausting reading what she's describing because I can relate. But, how many of you guys can relate? Write that in the comments of what she's been saying so far, whether you're in a same sex relationship or not. If you've been in a relationship with a covert narcissist or a psychopath or a sociopath or a borderline personality, it's exhausting. It really is. It's crazy making. Like, your world starts to look surreal to you, right? So I don't know. Let me know in the comments. As I write, I can imagine your exhaustion along with your worry, shame, and confusion. As I write, I can imagine the feeling of addiction and entrapment, the feeling that you cannot remove yourself from a relationship you know to be draining your life energy. As I write, I can feel the hooks she has sunk into your psyche. She needs me. Everyone else has left her, so I need to prove people can be good. And she is amazing. I just don't make her happy. I can feel you being tugged by the line of her extra specialness, her promises to do better, and your insatiable curiosity to figure it out so you can fix it. I can feel how you are caught in the trap of these questions. She said she loved me. How can I get us back to that affectionate place. She's great in public. So why is she so harsh with me? And eventually, if she thinks I am so honorable, so horrible, why won't she just leave? That part. I recognize the quicksand of resistance is futile, and I am in so deep that any escape attempt will resort in my complete destruction. I observe how that quicksand prevents you from setting yourself free. By now, you know that you have given more than you actually can afford in terms of money, time, and energy to a woman who somehow never refills your energetic tank or meets your emotional needs, meaning not emotionally available. Maybe you have moved across the country. Maybe you have drained your bank account or worked yourself into an illness. Maybe you have allowed her to set up camp in your home. Maybe you have taken her kids or bailed her out of jail. You have done these things trying to make her life better, thinking that help is uh, a hallmark of love or the price of admission to a few more moments in the spotlight of this remarkable woman's amazing attention. Because of the depth of your investment already, you may feel hopeless about walking away. You may stay because you feel trapped. You may stay because you feel obligated. Given how responsible you have become for this woman's support, care, feeding, or housing, you may worry about what it would mean about you if you walked away. You may always worrying what the Joneses will think. You may also worry about what the consequences would be for you, given how unpredictable your girlfriend is. She may threaten that that she will kill herself. Like that happens. By alternative, she may threaten to destroy you or both. Or your reputation or your custody of your children or something else dear to you. If you have legal or financial investments with her, you may be concerned that getting out could cost you your home, financial security, or career. If you aren't worried about payback or fallout as much as you are about who will take care of her and her vulnerabilities if you leave, you should be. You are the person about whom I am concerned. The toxic girlfriend will almost always make sure her own needs are met. And that's before your own. She's literally an energy vampire. That's what they do. Gimme, 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 hungry hippo. If you have worked up the courage to leave, or if you are taking a break, you may be holding your breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop, especially if you have been through this before. If your toxic girlfriend has borderline traits, you are probably waiting for one of you to reinitiate the dance of come here, go away. And that is something that it really is weird. As I'm reading this, I think, American psychology has done more damage, in my opinion, than it has done harm. But I take everything with a grain of salt. You know what I mean? I guess just in my life and in other people's life and what I've read, the history of it, whatever. But they're always talking about, I noticed that with psychologists, psychiatrists, they'll end up blaming the survivors instead, because they can't peg down or pin down the predators. Because when you're diagnosed with a cluster B personality, you're not going to admit shit. You don't care. It's always somebody else's fault. You're only doing it because somebody told you to do it, so you don't have to go to jail, or so because you have the cluster B personality has something invested, and they're in a parasitic symbiotic relationship. But I know throughout the time, it's like cluster B psychiatrists have often defended cluster B personalities. So it's like, because I remember hearing them say this thing, well, it's come here, go away, passive aggressive and all that stuff. And they would literally weaponize these terms and these phrases, especially for Black clients. So if y'all know what I'm talking about, put it in the comments. If your toxic girlfriend has borderline traits, you are probably waiting for one of you to reinitiate the dance of come here and go away. If she is narcissistic or sociopathic, the dance may resume when you apologize to her for her mistreatment of you and ask her to give you another chance. She may have convinced you that she is so important to you that being involved with her is worth the price of looking the other way when she lies to you or manipulates you. By alternative, she may toy with you by sending you a letter apologizing for nothing specific, or simply start texting you again to see if you will accept her overture, thinking that with the passage of enough time, you will forgive her for hurting you without her ever making amends. And that's something that's really big. Like some of us have done that. Like I sent somebody a text, oh God, like 3 weeks ago, I think about 3 weeks ago, sent her a text because I was wondering what she was doing. But it's like this person was a cluster B personality, a covert psychopath. But I sent them a text and I was like, why were you sending them a text? So some of us will send texts, whether you're dealing with a narcissist or whatever, but we'll do that to kind of test the waters because we're missing the person. Doesn't necessarily mean that we have a cluster B personality or those characteristics, but it's the end result of what they're trying to do. It's like ours is just, I'm feeling lonely. It's cuffing season. What's you up to? You know, yeah, So anyway, and then the apologizing for nothing, they apologize. And I was thinking about that because they never, I remember, and I've said this, told this story before, so I'll just get to the base of it. One of the cluster B personality, borderline personalities, personality that I had lived with, she spit in my face and told me this is why people hate Black people. I was going through in a blackout. Like I was gonna light her up if I would have completely gone through. But at that time, something held me back. I know what it was, but it said, this is her turf. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because I was surrounded by gang, Northerners and, all that gang stalking shit. She apologized, but it wasn't like, oh yeah, you did it right. And she just kind of shrugged the right. Yeah, you do the right thing. Like she didn't want to go through it and deconstruct it. Like, why did you even spit in my face? Why did you make that racist statement? Right? Because just all this stuff she did. So we didn't really, I let it go because I figured out, okay, you're 5150. There's no coming back for you. And, the Most High saved me from a jail sentence. Right? You're not going to destroy my life because you're 5150. But I noticed the whole thing is like, so she kept thinking, oh, I'm so sad, because she knew that she couldn't get in. She had said something so despicable and done something so despicable. Here's another woman of color, but who feels that they're higher up on the racial caste, that they're spitting into somebody's buddy's face saying, this is why people don't like Black people. So she never apologized for that. She was just regretful that she had done it before she had broken me down to where I would just accept that type of behavior. See, she did it too fast because she was too frustrated because I wasn't being conditioned by her grooming. And I'm a fighter by nature. I'm a warrior. So there's no way, So yeah, they don't apologize for anything. It's always your fault. But she was regretful, which is not remorseful. Remorseful means that you'll change your behavior and do better. You'll make it right. Regretful means, dang it, I didn't strategize for it right. I turned left too soon. It was the next one. You know what I mean? That's regret. For the person with borderline personality disorder, the game centers on abandonment and attachment. For the narcissist, the game centers on adoration, entitlement, and grandiosity. For the sociopath, the game is always about power and sometimes about punishment. For people with any of these personality patterns, the effort to reunite with you is not about you, but about how hooking you back in benefits them. Let me do this again. Let's read this again. For the person with borderline personality disorder, the game centers on abandonment and attachment. For the narcissist, the game runs on adoration, entitlement, and grandiosity. For the sociopath, the game is about power and sometimes about punishment. And that's a cocktail. You got one diagnosis, you got all the others. So you're gonna have somebody that's is gonna do all of them. The game is about power and sometimes punishment for the sociopath. For people with any of these personality patterns, the effort to reunite with you is not about you, but about how hooking you back in really benefits them. So how hooking you back in benefits them. And if they got to feign an apology, that's what they're going to do. Because once they hook you back in, they're going to finish the job and make up for lost time. Because you disrespected them. You dared to remove yourself, slave. So why I'm going to punish you. You know what I mean? Like when I think about, I know that this is not, I won't say that, never mind. But they treat people like they're slaves, basically. You perhaps suffer from the illusion that you really aren't seeing what you're seeing, or which is disassociation. We have cognitive dissonance. You perhaps suffer from the illusion that you really aren't seeing what you're seeing, or that a person you love would ever intentionally exploit, manipulate, or take advantage of you. Until you are confident that you are really done with this relationship, you are still vulnerable. I'll read this last paragraph and then I'll stop actually, because I gotta get to work early in the morning, or actually, I can read one more. So if you have read this much and feel some resonance between what I am saying and what you are experiencing, chances are that you are in a relationship with a woman who has a personality disorder, sociopathic, narcissistic, or borderline. Chances are also that this relationship won't end well for you, although ending it on your terms as soon as possible will likely be the most thing you can do to create a happy outcome for your life over the long course. How do I know that she really loves me? I am a sociologist and a psychotherapist in my clinical practice, in lesbian dating workshops and roller coaster relationship workshops, and in my preparation for this book, I have worked with and interviewed women who have survived relationships with personality disordered partners. I know it's going with personality disordered partners, partners whose personality traits prevent them from having stable, mutually supportive, healthy relationships with others. I have worked with and interviewed women who have survived relationships with personality disordered partners whose personality traits prevent them from having stable, mutually supportive, healthy relationships with others. I have read extensively on these pathologies and have taken specialty training in providing therapy to people with personality disorders. As a clinician specializing in trauma, I see people in my practice who have been traumatized in relationships with people with personality disorders. As a staff member in a mental health crisis unit, I work with both distressed partners and people with personality disorders, often trauma survivors themselves, whose disordered behavior often frustrates and worries clinicians as much as it does the other people in their lives. Having worked with personality disordered people, having supported the partners of people with personality disorders as they cope with their relationships or heal from them, and having them on the task, having taken on the task of learning as much as possible through the research literatures on personality disorders, trauma, abusive relationships, and facilitating healthy relationship patterns. I am familiar with many stories. Sorry, guys. I am familiar with many stories of relationship suffering in same-sex relationships, as well as with, am I still recording? Yes, please. Thank you, God. I moved my mic. Of relationships suffering in same-sex relationships, as well as with many stories of recovery from such difficult relationships. Beyond the experience of supporting others through these relationships and working with people who have personality disorders, I have had my own direct experience. I know what I know, not only as a witness to others' lives, but with from direct experience in my own. And so in her life. In short, when I work with lesbian partners of women with narcissistic, borderline, and antisocial personality disorders, I can relate to the challenges of both staying in and getting out, not only through clinical experience and training, but through familiarity with the territory gained by having lived to tell the tale. Hallelujah. In this book, my goals are: number one, to help women like you who are living through the chaotic, dramatic, exploitive, and exhausting dramas of relationships shaped by personality disorders, in particular, borderline, narcissistic, and sociopathic personalities. By mapping out what those disorders are, how they affect relationship functioning, and the consequences they create for partners. To help you look at the factors that may have made you vulnerable to crazy relationships is number two. Three, to aid you in recovering from such relationships by offering practical strategies and useful tools for putting the pieces of your life back together, which is what my January 11th course is doing. You know, we're creating a community at the Phoenix Rising Academy to be able to support one another and, you know, hold each other accountable for our growth and you know, rising up from the ashes of these relationships. So number three, to aid you in recovering from such relationships by offering practical strategies and using useful tools for putting the pieces of your life back together, to help you become more attuned to disordered personality patterns as they show up early in dating relationships so that you can screen future partners more skillfully. Exactly. And number five, to provide resource for therapists working with women who are in relationships and personality disordered women partners. Although this book focuses specifically on women in same-sex relationships, I am confident that much of the material applies to cross-sex relationships as well. The dynamics reported by patterns in cross-sex relationships and gay male relationships in which one partner has a personality disorder resonate deeply with women's experiences with women who have personality disorders, okay? And the next chapter that I'll read is Beyond Lesbian Drama. So that'll be for next time, you guys. Again, like, subscribe, share, and we are reading, as I promised, we are reading from the book, The Wise Lesbian Guide to Getting Free of Crazy Making Relationships by Amber Alt, PhD. Got this on Amazon. So, and you know, I think that she's gotten and getting on with your life. So we're all wanting for you Phoenixes to get on board. You know, we're all wanting the same thing, for you to heal from these you know, what I have termed demons. Because it's you just can't be real and expect to use, sorry guys, have to sage after that. You can't do dragon's blood, actually. You can't be real and literally think that it's okay to traumatize somebody, to literally go walk into somebody's, target them nonetheless. It's not like you think that it's a cute meet. It's not. It's street theater. You've been targeted. You've been targeted by these people. They went. Uh-oh. See if the microphone goes back. So thank you guys for reading this with me, sharing this with me. Please like, subscribe, and share. Um, Subscribe so when I post, you'll get the notification. I always record these ahead of time because I want to be able to be on time because I'm responsible for you guys. I love you, Phoenixes, and I really truly desire to see you. Sorry, Zoom is letting me know that it's back on my microphone. So I really desire to see you guys come into your authentic self and live in your purpose, right? That's a part of showing. It's a part of growth and it's a part of showing, because when you know better, you do better, right? When you clear away that wreckage of your past, you're no longer living from somebody else's fear. You're no longer living, from Stockholm syndrome. You're no longer living from a caged bird or a lonely, abused child, right? You're standing completely in your power. And everybody deserves that. Some of us aren't as far as along as we should be, and because we have been purposely distracted, delayed, and rejected. And it's caused us to lose confidence, not in ourselves or in our abilities necessarily, but in the fact that we will ever get to the final destination, there, to the purpose that we have. I had to look at my life, before you start getting depressed about it, like look at the things that have happened on your journey, and I had to say, well, I hid, I hid for 5 years, but they wouldn't let me hide. I didn't answer the hero's journey call. I finally did. I was finally forced to. So I must be doing something important, and I'm pretty sure that you have something important to do too. So, again, January 11th is when the course, 8-week online course, the 4 steps to your authentic self and breaking free of cluster B personality disorders, is launching. I am looking for 10 people who want to join the Phoenix Rising Academy and get on their healing journey. And the course, you will, for 8 weeks, you will be given weekly quizzes. There's a workbook to download. Plus, we will meet weekly via Zoom call, which means that you have to have an updated email so that you can receive the notifications that I will send you. Also, you will have access. The course is $150. It's 25% off, and that will go after January 11th. So it was $200. It's off. There's $50 off. Okay, so you're only paying $150, and you can make that $50 get you in. You do 2 other monthly payments for 2 months, right? So it's affordable. Plus, you can sign up for a coaching session with me. Normally, it's 60 minutes. It's still going to be 60 minutes, but it's 60 minutes at $90 an hour. So 60 minutes at $90. But you guys, Phoenix's Rising Academy, those who enroll also get that. And if you want to start, kind of, for those, if you want to start devising a plan for your transition, a plan to help you see clearly, because when we get out of those relationships, there's a lot of brain fog, there's a lot of cloudiness, and you're gonna have to take that time to decompress. And so we can go through a process. I can do an intake with you. We can go through a process where we can figure out, okay, what are the next steps that you need to take? What is, you can triage it. What's most important first? So I can help you just to see clearly, so you can see clear. You need somebody to bounce something off of. There I am, right? So, I mean, $90, you get it for free. And that's all throughout, you just one session a week for everybody. That's why I'm only taking 10 people, because I want to be sure that I can keep, spend time and focus on you guys. 10 people is enough. So if you know somebody who would love to take this course with me, and just share the link with them. If you have any questions, please DM me. And remember, your blessings are in your ashes. Stay tuned. Subscribe, and share. Subscribe and ring the bell so that way you know when I'm going to upload the next section of reading this book by Amber Alt. Okay. Love you, Phoenixes. Rise.